was singing, I'm struck by an odd thought, and it was many times I get up and talk to people who don't have a clue about volunteerism, how good it makes you feel, how good it makes everybody else feel. But I'm talking to volunteers about volunteering. So what struck me while the choir was singing was that I am literally going to be preaching to the choir. You know, I think probably some of you remember me a few years ago. I came and spoke to you, and you've grown a little bit since then, I think, and we have as well. We meet 3 times a week now at Crossroads Mall in Oklahoma City, and we meet on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 10 until 4, and it's always just, sometimes just standing room only, because we're in such a small space, but we do big things from there, and you guys definitely do big things as well, and we thank you so much for your participation with us. We thank you especially for your big caring hearts for our troops. How many of you have been in the military at one time or another? Or married to a military spouse? Or you maybe currently have someone serving in the military? Okay, there's a couple. Anybody deployed currently? Okay, the reason I ask is because we have 4,000 Christmas care packages that we're trying to fill, and we're trying to fill them for young men and women that are still deployed to this day. And so if any of you do hear of someone who is deployed who would like to have a Christmas care package, be sure to get their name and when they're going to be coming back. You know, make sure that they're still there at Christmas time. Their birthday, if that happens while they're over there, so that we can send them a birthday box. And that's how we get our names. I get asked a lot, how do you get the names of the people you're sending to? For the most part, we don't know.
Iraq, Afghanistan, deployed?
Well, by deployed, I mean Iraq or Afghanistan. We don't know the people that we're sending to, but we love and appreciate all of them. We feel like they're all over there for us, and I know you feel that way as well. I want to tell you just a little bit about my story. I was a widow. My husband was killed in a car accident about 24 years ago. And so after feeling really depressed and sorry for myself for a few years, I got involved as a volunteer with Jesus House and Feed the Children and Skyline Urban Ministries, which is a part of the Methodist Church. And I realized there were a lot of people worse off than me. For a while I didn't really believe that. I thought, oh, poor me. But it took me out of that poor me mode and into, wow, I'm doing something to help somebody else. So when we went into Desert Shield, there was a little blurb on the news, Channel 9, that said if you would like to write a letter to a service member that's deployed. And right before that, they actually showed a video clip that has changed my life forever. And they showed a young man, and he's out there in the middle of the desert, and he's got his MREs, and they weren't even, I don't know whether they were called that then or not, but they didn't have a way to heat him up, so it's strapped to his manifold, and he's trying to get his meal hot so he can have a hot meal for a change. It's in the middle of some pretty nasty times over there. But the part that changed my life was it showed him with his oatmeal cookie, and he's crunching it up, and he's sprinkling it over his mashed potatoes so he can stir it in and have something different to eat. They've eaten the same MREs day after day after day, and he's just sick of it, and he wants something different. Well, oatmeal cookie potatoes, wow. And I'm thinking, I can send food, I know how to bake, I like to make cookies. Oh, I could write some letters, right? So I wrote letters. I actually wrote one letter, took it to church, had everybody at church sign it, and then I made Xerox copies, put them in different envelopes, and sent them out as part of Operation Mail Call for Channel 9. Well, we sent out about 30 letters. We got back almost 40 replies. People over there were starved for, you know, can I read that letter? Would it be all right if I write to this church and see if they maybe adopt me too? And so our church, our little country church out north of El Reno, adopted about 40 soldiers and sailors, airmen and Marines. Well, out in the middle of the Persian Gulf, sitting on an aircraft carrier, doing circles in the Persian Gulf, was a lonely sailor from Texas. And when they called, if you want a letter from back home, you need to come up to the morale office and pick you out a letter. Well, he went twice, but he always waited and asked permission of his boss, and by the time he got up there, all the letters were gone. So the third time, he didn't wait for anybody's permission. He just took off running, and he said when he got there was a pretty good stack of letters. But he just didn't want the one off the top. He's never been one to do things ordinary. So he went down into the stack of letters till he felt like that was the right letter, and that's the one he pulled out, and he read, and fell in love with the lady that wrote the letter, and we've been married 17 years. So this is my husband, Ray Stark, has this tremendous heart for troops because he's been there, done that, as I know some of you have been there, done that. So that's why we're so involved with making sure these guys get to know the good feeling. They may not get a wife out of the deal, but they're going to get some homemade cookies and candy at Christmas. They're going to get some really special things that let them know there are a whole bunch of patriotic people back home that they're probably not hearing about on the media.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know that we love and support them unless they get that care package. One thing I'll tell you about our troops is no one of them ever gets a care package that says, hey, back off, this is my care package. No, what happens is they open it up, they take out the one or two things that they just think they got to have out of that box, and then they lay it out either on a blanket, on their bed, on a chunk of sand out there in the middle of the desert, and they say, everybody, grab you something, get you something out of my box. And they know whenever you get your box, you're going to share with the rest of us, and when you get yours, you're going to do the same. So they very much are band of brothers and sisters, and they take care of each other. One of my favorite stories is a young man wrote in and he said, Karen, and I've given this kid the name of Simon Wilkowski because I think that's an odd enough name. There probably aren't very many of those in the world. And he said, Karen, if you would just write to Simon, it would mean the world to him. He said he doesn't have family. He came over here, his girlfriend basically wrote him off when he left because she didn't have a year to devote to him. And Simon has been here 8 months and never gotten anything from home. So we got him a package ready, and we sent it off, and I wrote to the young man that gave us the name, and I said, in about a week, you know, about eight days, packages are getting to your location, so start looking for a package for Simon. So he waits the appropriate length of time, and he said, hey, Simon, let's go to mail call. And Simon said, why would I go to mail call? I mean, I've never gotten anything. You go on. He said, no, come up, stand and talk with me, and we'll visit while we're waiting for my mail to get here. So Simon goes up with him, and here they are calling mail. Brown, Jones, Smith, Wilkowski. And old Wilkowski's going. Who else has mine? You know, he can't imagine that package is for him. Are you Wilkowski? Yeah. Well, here's your box. So Simon wrote us one of the best letters ever. He said, I didn't know anybody cared, but I didn't know anybody knew I was still on this earth, much less cared. But that's what we did for Simon Wilkowski. If that's only one life that we've affected, that's a pretty good one. He may come home like Ray did and found a nonprofit so that other guys can know that great feeling. Or he may work with homeless people, or he may, you know, go out and work with the Special Olympics. But I bet you Simon in some way does something good for somebody else down the line.